It's very important to think about transferability and look at the administrative procedures on your campus to determine how CPL relates into your administrative procedures. So the first would be residency. Is it possible that the CPL units may be applied towards your residency requirements? So each institution is going to have different criteria for this in their administrative procedures. There also might be some unit limitations based on your institutional policies on how many CPL units can be awarded. So that's something very important to be aware of. And as Ellen had just went over, the grading is also important to take a look at. So you need to follow the grading system that's been approved by the governing board at your institution. And students should be offered a pass, no pass option if it is available at your campus. It's also really important to think about the UC transfer limitations. So the UC does have a limit for pass, no pass. You can only have up to 14 units. So this would also apply towards CPL, and it's something that's very important to consider when looking at transfers for CPL. Each system is going to be different in terms of their CPL policies. I'm first going to review the CSU system. So they're very generous in terms of which CPL types that they'll accept. They will accept the external exams, so those are those AB, IB, CLEP, and DSST. They will also take any industry credentials that have been transcribed by the California community colleges, as well as military credit. And portfolio review is also accepted so long as it's transcribed on our transcript. There are some limits, though, that you need to be aware of. So there is a 30 semester, 45 quarter unit maximum for those standardized exams. And this is going to apply toward admission or to the degree requirements. So that's really important to keep an eye on that limitation. Now, this limit does not apply towards the IB or AP exams. So they can exceed that 30 semester, 45 quarter units. And this is actually governed by the CSU systems by they're regulated by WASC. So this is a compliance requirement that they have to abide by. And in our research, we found that there are actually a couple campuses that have stricter limits. So for example, we did find one campus that only allows up to 25 units. So that is important to take a look at to make sure that you are not exceeding that limitation. UC, so they have very different policies in the CSU. They're more strict on the types of CPL that they'll accept. So this transfer credit is evaluated both system-wide and by the campus, as well as major preparations. So you may have different policies for each one in terms of what can be accepted. And not all CPL types awarded at the California Community College are going to be transferable to the UC. And as I had stated before, it's really important to remember that only 14 units will be accepted as pass, no pass. Let's go over the different types of credit by exam and what type of documentation is going to be required by the UC. First, the AB, IB, and A levels. The UC requires that they have an official score report or transcript, and they will not accept CLEP or Dante's. For credit from another institution, so this would be, for example, a pass along for CalGETC or maybe a course substitution for a major requirement, an official transcript is also required. And it must be issued by the institution where the student took that course from. Military credit, the UC requires HAST, and they're going to use the ACE recommendations and will award credit after the student transfers. You may have some students that are taking dual enrollment courses, so they're in high school students that are taking college classes. Those courses need to be transcribed on the official college transcript, and the courses must be UC transferable and posted on the transcript in order to be UC transferable. And lastly, credit by exam. So this is something that's equivalent to a college course that also needs to be transcribed on the transcript. You need to have not only the course credit, but also the term and the grades listed on that transcript, and pass, no pass, or credit, no credit. That needs to be indicated as well. They'll take the pass or the credit scores, and the course needs to appear under the term that they took that course. In terms of CPL and how it applies towards our GE patterns or for transfer for for the ADT, there are going to be different policies or rules that apply to this. So for AB and IB, those are going to apply to our transfer GE patterns. So the CSU GE, the IGETC, the CalGETC. You need to refer to the CalGETC, IGETC standards or to the CSU external exam credit policy because it has a chart that indicates what score a student needs in order to be applicable to any of those three GE patterns. In terms of local GE and how it can apply to your major at your institution, you should refer to the California Community College Chancellor's Office Memo ESS 2320. Those are the guiding notes on how we can apply those towards our local GE pattern. And then for your major at your institution, that's going to be campus specific. So that's determined by your institution and what you want to give credit for. If a student is transferring with an ADT, this is acceptable, but you should make sure that you double check the major requirements specifically because sometimes campuses have a different score that they'll accept. So make sure that you're looking at that to ensure that it does meet the requirements for a student who's transferring who wants to maybe use this for a major requirement. CLEP is a little different. So the CSU GE pattern is the only transferable GE pattern that will use CLEP. IGETC and CalGETC will not you take or be able to apply those scores to those GE patterns. Similar to the AP and IB exam scores, you need to refer to the Chancellor's Office Memo ESS 2320 and to your local policy to determine how it applies to local GE and to major requirements. You can use CLEP for CSU GE, but you may not use it on IGETC or CalGETC for those ADTs. Now, credit by exam, you can pretty much apply that to any of our transfer GE patterns. So CSU GE, IGETC, CalGETC, those are all acceptable to apply those. And now in terms of your local program, GE or major, you need to refer to your institutional policies as those are going to differ. And the UC and CSU are going to accept any transcription of credit by exam that's on the transcript. For military, industry, and portfolio, those all kind of have the same criteria or applicability towards our transfer GE patterns. CSU GE will take all three of those types, but the IGETC and CalGETC will not take those. And you want to, again, refer to your institutional policies for those three types of CPL. And they do apply to CSU GE, but not to CalGETC or IGETC for those ADTs. And at the bottom of the slide are the references that you can see the charts for the different GE patterns and to see if the AP-IB will apply towards the GE pattern. Private schools is going to differ. It's going to depend on the school that the student is transferring to. There's not a blanket CPL statement for all of the private schools. But we have done some research to look at the top 10 schools in California, that the private institutions and out of state, to kind of give you some a guide to see what it is that will transfer. These are located on the MAP website under the Counselor Resources Hub, and there's a URL here and a QR code that you can scan so that you can see the guides for these top 10 institutions. This is what the guides look like. So it's a very broad guide that gives a very high-level overview of how the universities are going to either, one, evaluate CPL, or if they have, will accept transcribe CPL. So on these guides, you will see a list of the accepted CPL assessments that they will take, whether or not the CPL can apply to GE, major, electives, or degree requirements, if they need any type of documentation or transcript, and then any specific policies towards that institution will also be on this guide as well. There are also links to the university transfer and CPL resources so that you can get further information as well.